Is life getting better or worse? As we enter the middle of 2025, there's a lot of technology and changes with AI. We have a better standard of living, and things should be getting overall easier for humans. But we're going to explore whether that's actually the case. Depression is higher than it's ever been. People are less involved in society and more lonely than they've ever been before. And myself and Adam are going to dive into the reasons for that and come up with some insightful answers for you today, ladies and gentlemen. I just wanted to say something to the audience as well, because we recently hit a milestone here on Temporally Scripted. We hit 20 subscribers. So I want to thank all of you lovely subscribers for that. And if you have watched the video to this point of 1 minute, then please give us a like, a comment, and a subscribe. It makes us want to carry on doing what we're doing. Give us that support and we'll appreciate it.
Yeah, and if you're watching and you haven't subscribed, but you like it, then subscribe. It actually does help channels a lot, especially small channels like ours. And it's really important if you want to support people doing this kind of thing, basically.
Absolutely. And if you make a comment, I'll even make you a personalized video to say thank you. That's how confident I am that we won't get more than 5.
Could be a very wise thing to say.
Absolutely. So obviously today we've got more knowledge, more technology, and more convenience than we ever had before. So if we explore today's environment, surely things are better.
You would think so, yeah. And judging by many metrics, there are so many things that are way better in terms of, I don't know, life expectancy or something like that. Where, what was it? Yeah, so years and years ago, you'd say, okay, life expectancy is like 30, but now it's 73 worldwide or something. This was just since 1900. And so, yeah, that's a majorly massive thing. In terms of poverty, in 1981, 42% of the world lived in extreme poverty. But in 2022, that was below 8%. That's
totally huge. Yeah. Do you know what the biggest driver was for the change in early death rate?
Death rate. Part of it was to do with infant mortality.
I think it's like a Florence Nightingale style, things being cleaner and just having a better understanding of the spread of infection and disease. Because I believe back in those times, people didn't really see the point in washing their hands and stuff. So you have your doctor, he's like, cuts you open and then wipes the thing on his jacket, goes to the next person and gives
the more
them a
blood
cut.
he has on him, the better of a doctor he looks. It's it must be a good doctor. I've got blood all over me. Got blood
exactly.
From like 17 different people on me.
Wiping it, and then he goes for a number 2 and doesn't wash his hands after that.
You know, that was the thing with the old barbershop signs. It has a sort of cylinder with like red going round, and it spins round outside a barbershop. That's because in the old days, your barber he'd cut your hair, but he'd also be your dentist. And so he'd be doing like dental extractions and things like that. And in the old days, outside of a barbershop, they'd have the rags that they used to clean up the blood. They'd be hanging outside the shop, and that evolved into the spinning, stripy thing that we see today.
That's wild.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. It makes me think about whether or not they also be a surgeon in a Sweeney Todd style way. Was he a barber as well?
I believe he was, yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised the big corporations haven't got hold of that and started multi-jobbing people. Now, if you told if you told certain Western controlling institutions about that you could have someone who's a barber and also a dentist, with the current level of funding in things like the NHS, Starmer might be all over that one.
We've outsourced your operation to Dave down at the barber shop. He'll do a bang-up job. He's great. He's really friendly as well. He'll ask you about your holiday, your family, and you'll have a nice time. He's a good lad.
Yeah, it's like we used to do it in the past, so why can't we do it now? Yeah, I'm sure that makes total sense. It's a great one. We've saved the NHS
by outsourcing it all to somebody else who's completely not qualified.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally.
But yeah, so it's like by those metrics, things have improved massively. And that's like the argument of Steven Pinker and things like that, but it's like we've never had it so good in all kinds of different ways. And also with the health thing, it's maybe we mentioned it before, but things like antibiotics. It's like I had an eye infection recently, took some antibiotics, it's fine. If this was like 200 years ago or something like that, maybe the infection would get worse and worse. I'd lose an eye or it'd go into my brain.
I'd have already been to your funeral. Yeah,
yeah,
basically.
More than likely.
He was a good lad, Adam. Yeah.
Yeah. Apart from that manky eye, it was all right.
It's a shame what happened to his eye.
Cut down in his prime.
Yeah, this is it. And then there's obviously the side of things with education and knowledge, and the vast majority of the world, although not as much of it that should have, has got clean water. There's all of these other things that seem to make the world a better place. And I guess it's hard to measure because there is a happiness index, isn't there? There is like the happiest city in the world and the saddest city in the world. There is like a way of measuring these things.
Yeah, usually isn't it like Scandinavian countries that tend to come out on top, which is odd in a way because they have such cold weather and high taxes and things like that, but they always seem to be like the happiest places to live.
Yeah, it's because the birds are fit.
Could be.
But there's also Thailand and Vietnam as well is up there in happiness stakes. So I think that's why Thailand's always referred to as the land of smiles. So
okay.
Oh wait, but the women are also really attractive in this part of the world.
Yeah, I'm noticing some kind of pattern.
I think
I'm wondering who was interviewed in these surveys. Was it just English blokes on holiday? Or I don't know.
Funny. Yeah, but I think measurement is a tricky thing. And I guess what could be the driving force behind people thinking that maybe life is better today? What's the biggest thing out of all of those things that we've talked about?
I really don't know. Because it depends when we take it from as well. Because do we take it from like Neolithic times, or do we take it from our remembered lifetimes or something like that? I would think technology is a big one, and just all the things that we can do now and that we have in our everyday lives that we didn't before. And even just the access to things as well, as technology seems to get cheaper and more affordable as time goes on. Like when we were kids, buying a new TV was generally like a really big thing, or buying a vacuum cleaner or something like that was a big part of someone's monthly income, or they might have to save for a long time to get that. Whereas now it's like, oh, my TV's broke. Never mind, trick it away, I'll buy a new one for like £100 or something, but it'll be like some massive 4K amazing thing.
Yeah, there's definitely been a huge increase in technology, and I think the healthcare side of things is massive as well. It's in general, everywhere is cleaner and tidier and less unsafe than it would have been in the past. And of course, there's a lot less in most of the developed world and developing world. There's a lot less child labor. there's a big change in all of that kind of process, and people have more leisure time for sure than they ever had previously. Like you didn't, you didn't get to go on a holiday very often in Victorian times. And I think for me, the argument is like, how much better is life probably over the last few hundred years, maybe into 1,000 years. I think beyond a couple of thousand years, you start to get to a point where things are so unrecognizably different that it's like, it's not even comparable. Like, even if you go back as far as the Romans, they were still going to watch gladiator events and eating and going to the vomitorium so they could eat more, and all of these kind of wild things that they did. There's still
allegedly.
like a civilization, or allegedly.
Yeah,
so he's going to ruin something for me.
I
Boys
heard
and
the
girls with his facts.
vomitorium thing was actually a myth, because vomit meant just like an exit, and so it was more of some kind of exit thing in the amphitheaters or something. It wasn't actually a place to go vomit and then eat more. It weren't actually that excessive. So I've heard, I could be wrong, but as always, I'm sure one of our watchers will check that out and leave a comment below.
Yeah, I'm glad I learned all of my history from Horrible Histories.
Okay.
If anyone remembers that book series from when we were younger, you had all the horrible histories from different ages. I just assumed that would be factually correct, and that historical knowledge would see me through until the day I died.
It's like that thing, the half-life of facts. Just you have like radioactive decay or something like that, where something radioactive has a half-life, where after so many years it's half as radioactive. A lot of the time it's the same with facts, because we just learn something new or a new angle.
Or you forget where you heard it, and then you realize that you were like 7 in the playground at primary school when Dave from the estate told you about it, and you've just held it as fact ever since.
It's definitely happened to me before.
Yeah, I had it the other day where I said that drinking hot drinks in hot countries makes you cooler, because I just heard this fact, and I was like, oh yeah, I've been preaching it for years and proudly going to places in Vietnam, drinking hot teas and hot coffees.
Sweating like crazy.
Yeah. And you know what? It is actually factual that when you sweat, it cools you down. But there's a key difference between somewhere like India or one of these countries, Vietnam, and that's humidity. So if the air is above 60 or 70% humidity, making yourself sweat just makes you uncomfortable because it can't evaporate. So I've been proudly telling this fact to people, like, oh, you should have a hot drink, cools you down. That's why they drink tea in India. I was like, I think I'm just gonna, because this has happened to me quite a bit recently, I'm just gonna chat GPT this.
Have you managed to converse any Vietnamese people, and they've gone, oh, you know what, Jack, good idea, you were right?
Yeah, no, my wife always said I was wrong, and I do admit it. I've just chat GPT'd it, and yeah, turns out what I've said, nonsense, not true at all. Halfway through a pot of like warrior tea and some plates
on my second liter of tea for the day,
sweating bullets. Like, mate,
I'm still feeling hard. I'll just keep drinking some more. It'll be fine.
Yeah. It's funny we're just there about technology changing and the future that we're going towards and all the extra things we have. Like I just said there, something that only a couple of years ago would have been I Googled, and I said I chat GPT'd. It's already changed.
Yeah.
It's already been replaced. And I think some of that leads into the second part of the argument, which is, of course, the case for the collapse. And some of it is the difference in perception and what we see. And we'll go into that later. Let's make the case now for why is the world getting worse, and why all of this technology coming through, and better healthcare and cleaner water, and being able to chat GPT facts that you learn in the playground and see if they're right or not in an instant, why these things don't make us happier when they clearly should. So let's start with the case of collapse. And as the prince of collapse culture. Adam, you can kick us off.
Okay. That's why I'm wearing a more or less black shirt today. Yeah, so I guess one thing we could point to is depression. So apparently in 2023, don't know if it's gone up since then, but depression rates in the US hit an all-time high, which was 1 in 3 adults under 35 reporting symptoms of depression. Suicide is now the second leading cause of death for ages 15 to 29. It's wonderful having better healthcare and longer lives, but what, you're just going to live longer, more miserable lives? And to have suicide as such a major cause of death, that's really worrying, and it shows that something is going wrong somewhere.
Yeah, and it's not something that I'm going to speculate on why that is necessarily in too much detail, because obviously it's a very sensitive topic. But yeah, it's a hugely scary piece of information that's happening to so many people, and an indication, I guess, of a massive societal failing.
Yeah, and it's a symptom of something, but we just need to diagnose what the cause is. And like you say, that's going to be really complex. Because where's it coming from? Is it it's something in our environment? Is it from social media? Is it media? Is it our day-to-day lifestyles, the kind of jobs that we do, perhaps being a bit unfulfilling? Is it something that's in our food? Is it something in the water, something that's affecting hormone levels? Is it levels of vitamin D? It could be all these different things. It could also be people in a way just feeling a bit down or giving up because for their parents' generation, just doing the normal thing, going out, getting a job, get married, buy a house, raise a family, that was all like just a normal thing that everyone did, and it was really achievable. But over time, wages have gone up like this, but house prices have gone up like this. And for a lot of people, the thought of even getting on the housing ladder is just an impossibility because the differences are just so great. In London alone, since the 90s, house prices have gone up 500%. Wages haven't. And it's the same in, I know it's the same in much of the rest of the UK, maybe not to the same degree, but by a huge amount. And so people just have this, you know what, we get despondent, they just not care and just almost give up in a way. So I don't know if that could be part of it as well, because people are just going, I can work hard and at the end of the month I can pay all my debts or pay all my bills, and that's it.
Yeah, it's hugely complex, and I think there's part of it where, in my head, and to play a bit of devil's advocate on this, there's a measurement angle to this. It's like, how long have we defined depression in the way that it's defined today, and how long has that been measured? So is there like an increase in awareness of these things, which is great, and that there should be an increase in awareness, whereby more people are reporting that they have these symptoms and feeling comfortable that they have these symptoms and these problems and stuff. So that could be a factor. Because for me, I guess the argument is, imagine if you go back to Victorian times and you're in Manchester or in the Northeast or something, and you picture the day of a life of somebody who is like a middle income factory worker, for example. Is they're waking up at 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning and warming up some potatoes or some bread or whatever, and then they're going down to the factory and they're working in the manufacturing for hours on end. There's no phones to distract or to look at anything entertaining wise. And I think that's a key comparison, is you can't then look at people driving around in Lamborghinis and going around towns giving people $500 for barking like a dog or whatever on the internet now, right? There's no.
I think we watch some very different things on the internet.
Or Vin Diesel like chucking dudes through windows or whatever, right? There's all of these things that you can look at and see, and then naturally as a human you're going to start comparing your life with their life. So they didn't have any of that stuff, but if you carry on the day, it's like lunch would come, they probably go to the chip shop and have a nice healthy meal of a deep fat fried piece of potato inside a bread roll if they were lucky, carbs with carbs inside. Fritter cob, have you ever had a fritter cob?
I have, yeah,
which is a big chunk of potato, deep fat fried in batter inside a sandwich with some ketchup to give it some color.
On a night out, it's fine.
Yeah, it's a good tactical meal to just keep you going if your belly's a bit empty or whatever. But you get where I'm going with this, and then you go and work for another 5 hours and whatever, maybe 6 o'clock you finish, and you go home and it's dark and you've probably not got electricity, and your wife's got dysentery or whatever, and your kids have got rickets, and then you'd probably drink a couple of pints of like
whiskey,
seriously low quality alcohol, and go to bed, and then do it again.
Because maybe you're right with a sort of comparison thing, because now we have social media. It's like everyone multiple times a day sees other people showing off, or people that are like orders of magnitude richer than in their nice houses, doing different things, being a celebrity, whatever. And we didn't really have that comparison so much going back. If we go back like 100 years or even 50 years in a way, you still had TV, but you weren't on your TV for 5-6 hours a day. And before then, you might not even have a TV and you're just hearing about the Queen or King on the radio. I don't know. You're not getting envious.
Even to quite recent times, that would have been the case. And you just wouldn't have known any difference. And I think here's a question, is if you sent most people from today back to Victorian times, how long do you think they would last?
Yeah, I don't know. It'd take a bit of getting used to, wouldn't it? Depending how the jobs were changing and things, to go from, I don't know, some nice job working in a nice warm call center to all of a sudden being in a factory, in some textile town or something. It would be pretty rough. With
a Monopoly style guy coming round and smacking you with a stick if you're not working hard enough or whatever. The people in top hats like doing what they do. I suppose if you could take the knowledge that you have from today back there, then you could invent something pretty quickly to get yourself ahead of the game. It's like, I've just come up with this great idea, guys.
Yeah, and just all kinds of things. You can imagine the kinds of things that people go to HR departments to complain about these days, trying to say that to your Victorian factory boss. Back then, I don't think they'd have much sympathy for all kinds of things, really, in the way they do now.
I mean, they just get you committed or lobotomized or something, you know? Like, they just don't mess around with stuff. And I think, again, it comes down to this relative feeling. It's what's the relative feeling and the relative understanding of that. And it's interesting because before this, I told you I've been reading this book about stuff, and it talks about the ceiling of happiness, right? And there's this ceiling, and wherever that ceiling is, like underneath that becomes your comfort zone. And that must have a bottom as well, right? So it's almost like, in some ways, it's irrelevant what things were like back then, because it's about what that comfort zone is now. And maybe we're just going through a point in time where we've dipped off from the peak of that comfort zone. So it feels like that for everybody, because obviously these feelings are legitimate, right? Depression's a thing. We know it is. We've studied it. We've got tons of data and information. Like, we know that's something that people suffer with, and we can see why, because of the state of the world that we live in. But
I was just going to say, and it's hard to know if those cases are higher or lower, or where they get the data from, because if they got that data from employers, I don't know, maybe if I was in the UK right now and I had a job I didn't like very much, and I knew it was quite easy to say, I'm suffering depression, I don't think I can come to work. I think I might have played that card once or twice.
yeah, I get it. Yeah.
And then
yeah.
a lot will be undiagnosed. There'll be a lot of people that are going through a lot of really harsh times and just not speaking to anybody about it, which my advice is not being a doctor, but if you are going through hard times, it's almost always better to speak to someone.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that, again, is probably a difference between the past 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and today. Is there's a total difference in the sense of community. So before, people would know everybody in their street and in their area or in their small town, and you have an understanding of what was going on with people. And if someone was going through hardship or was struggling, that there would be more of a helping out your neighbor, looking after them. Or such and such partner's just passed away and they've not got any money coming through, we're going to go round and help out, take the kids for a day, or bring some extra food, or invite them round for dinner, or offer them an ear. Or there'd be like community places like pubs or cafes or parks or whatever, where people would meet and talk to other people. And I think that is missing, and it's been replaced by this digital version of it, where people are brutal in the digital world. It's like people will egg people on to do stuff, and if someone goes and makes a video about being depressed and being down, or shares it publicly on social media, you'll have some people that will go in and start trolling that person and trying to encourage them and stuff. And there's like this, it's a different world in terms of that.
Something that never would have happened in the olden days, when to do that trolling, you'd have to do it face to face, and that has actual consequences. And I don't know, people know that it's you. Whereas in this anonymous kind of world that we have, people just do it. And in this, and yes, some people are really sick in the way that they do that kind of thing.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of the reasons that they don't really have road rage in Southeast Asia. Because if you're on a motorbike and you start going, look at this, but beep, whatever, you say loads of stuff, that he's going to go, you what, mate?
And you're not protected by this like metal cage and glass and everything around
you. Someone on the window. Have you seen that meme where the dude's punching the guy's window?
Oh, I don't know. I've seen a couple of things like that recently.
Yeah, and the people all took it and started turning it into a song, because he's just which is another great thing about the internet. But yeah, I feel like it could even be that the range of acceptable emotions has changed. Like in Victorian times, or I don't know why I keep going back to Victorian times. It's not some kind of obsession that
so
I've
you
got
think of it as the glory days of empire.
In my little flat cap smoking a pipe when I was 12.
Here's Larry on your way to
yeah. What, mister? But I've lost my point. But yeah, there was like what was socially acceptable to share and to do was totally different. If you could go, if you were laughing too hard about something in those times, people would be like, well, that's shocking.
Yeah,
I can't, why is he laughing so much? Bad form. It's that kind of vibe, isn't it? And I think the range of acceptable emotions was different. So therefore, the range of emotions that people would feel is probably different. And if something's outside of it, whoa, why am I feeling like this? That's weird. I'm just going to block it and go back to the range of acceptable emotions. Whereas now, that's not the case. No.
And I think you're right. It's very difficult to compare a lot of things now. Yeah, definitely 100 years ago, even less than that, because it's that thing, we got on that path of technology, and it's that sort of exponential curve. And so for hundreds of years, for thousands of years, everything was pretty much the same. Like nothing really improved that much. But then all of a sudden you get, I don't know, like early 1900s, and there's like a big jump between there and early 2000s in a way that it's almost unrecognizable, the time from 1900 to 2000, whereas the time from like 1700 to 1800, not much different. Via 1500 to 1600, it's virtually the same. It's like a few like little advancements, but not much. Whereas as technology's just got on that exponential curve of doubling and getting more and more quicker and quicker, it's like in a very short space of time, we've gone from one world to another world that's completely different.
Yeah, because we are still prehistoric in terms of our brains and the way we see stuff. And there's the lizard part of the brain. Another thing that comes to mind is that there is a massive difference in, at least in the Western world, in terms of faith and belief.
Yeah. What, in the amount of people who believe in a religion now compared to before, or?
Yeah, I think that, like, in the past, everybody believed in a god or some kind of higher power. And to be fair, it would usually be through an established religion. Before we had any sort of movement towards political systems that are godless, basically, people had a reason to believe there was a deeper meaning. And granted, obviously, a lot of religion can be related to control, of course.
It seems like a good kind of control to me. If I'm like the king and I say, okay, you should follow this religion and life will be pretty hard now, but when you die, you're going to have everything. You're going to have money, you're going to have women, you're going to have houses, you get anything that you can dream of in the afterlife. Things will be a bit long now, a bit hard now, and you'll have quite a short life, probably a lot shorter than mine, but just do what I say, and at the end of it, it'll
be all good. Yeah.
And if you don't do what I say, then you'll burn in hell for eternity. But it's to try and get people to believe that, which I guess they did, it seemed like a good means of control.
Yeah, and I feel like some of that is, as much as you can argue religion anyway that you like, the modern world that we live in, it's like we've almost thrown out the baby with the bathwater on that subject. Because if you dig into like science, right, big scientists such as Stephen Hawking, people like that, they're pretty much, when you boil down to Einstein, anybody, they all say that there's likely a prime mover in the situation. There's likely something there that's the reason for everything, right? If you look at the facts of how random it is that we even exist on this little spinning ball in a universe of all of this craziness, right? There's likely, but not confirmed, because we couldn't possibly confirm it. Thanks for the drum roll. Ding. Wait, the punchline's coming in a minute. But I think some of that is then lost in helping others, charity, community spirit, this kind of vibe, because people believe that there is no purpose or greater meaning to anything. And whatever you believe or think, I think that could be part of this reason for there being more of a tiredness, a sadness, a depression, a feeling of not belonging to anything. Because it's almost like deliberately it's become uncool to believe in there being a god or a prime mover, particularly where we're from. If we went through school in the UK in our time, if you said, "Oh, I believe in a god, but I'm not religious, I believe in God," people would be like, he's a Bible basher or whatever else, right?
Yeah.
It was almost, and that as we know, things like this are deliberate. They come from the media world that we live in, right? It's deliberately the reason that people act a certain way or do a certain thing is because all of the TV we watch, all of the books that we read, all of that is curated to make a common belief of what's normal and what's not.
Yeah. Yeah, just going back to something briefly you said about with kind of religion and people having a purpose and things like that. It's not just, I think, with religion itself, but it's like the shared feeling and the shared belief. And again, more of that community spirit of, okay, it's 8:30 on a Sunday morning. I'm going to church. I'm going to see all the different people in that community and we'll all chat afterwards and all do this thing as a group, this one thing that we all believe in. And I think various things like that are probably really important as well. And they probably lead to people's happiness a lot more.
Yeah.
It's the same as when we were looking at, or briefly mentioned some statistics earlier about poverty. It's like we discussed earlier, I think there are people living in poverty that aren't necessarily having miserable lives. They could be like subsistence farmers or something like that. And on the scale of poverty, they would fall into that category, but they could be having quite a fulfilled life, living in the countryside, doing that thing. I don't know. Or living in some community in some rural part of the world that doesn't have much money, but people seem happy, which when you go traveling, you tend to see that kind of thing quite a lot.
Totally. Yeah. And generally because they have less, they make more of it. And usually there's a community spirit in those kinds of lifestyles as well. Everyone knows each other. There's more of a caring and a helping, that kind of stuff. It's like most places in the UK now, people don't even say hello to their next door neighbor.
Or if you say hello to someone, you'll get this like strange look, as in like,
weird.
What the? Why is someone saying hello to me? Yeah, which I guess has always been there. I remember living in London for a bit, and that was definitely the case. I can't remember what it was. Like, I was walking somewhere, something crazy happened on the street, and just turned to the person next to me and was like, wow, that was a bit crazy, wasn't it? And we're just like, don't talk to me. What, huh? I don't know.
Yeah, London's a special kind of place, and it doesn't really, if you've only been to London, you've never actually been to the UK. For those of you that are watching and listening, it's its own beast, and it's very different to everywhere else, as I'm sure most capital cities are in the Western world, for sure. They're totally different environments, communities, atmospheres than anyone else. But it's something that's spread. And I think it's because in the past, people would live in the same house for much longer. There wasn't so much mobility in society.
Although that's been coming back again recently. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's between 30 and 40% of under 30-year-olds are in the UK are living at home with mum and dad.
Crazy.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that is a lot.
Maybe that's why the population's going down as well, unless people are having kids, because you might not really feel in the mood for it if like mum and dad are sleeping next door. I don't know. And then later on, even if the baby does get born, how do you position everything? It's like, oh, just stick the kid over there next to my PlayStation and I don't know. It's not really going to work out.
Yeah, it makes sense. And again, I think it was when you could buy like a house for the leftover change from going and buying a pack of Woodbines and a gallon of Magnus or whatever. It was easier, wasn't it? That is one of the one of the funny things about parents now. It's you should save up and get on the housing ladder. Personally, I don't understand the obsession with it as well. I think, why do you have to own a house? what is this about? Like, why are we programmed that there's some vision of success to own a house? What we really need is the landlords to not rob people so much. And then that would fix the whole problem. Like,
I mean, this is one of the things that's been going on. So like we mentioned earlier, it's like becoming way cheaper to buy consumer goods, electronics, have better access to things like clothing, food, everything. If you want to buy a car now, it's not the big deal that it was years ago. It's because if you want to, you could just buy a second-hand one that's going to be awesome for a couple of grand or something like that. And it's not like a big thing, but the housing thing, because it's gone up so much. And then it's the same with renting. It's really expensive to rent as well. So what's happened is it's just shifted where the money gets made in the economy in a way from the sort of consumer goods sector to the landlords and landowners. And that's who seems to be controlling a lot more of the money these days, because rents are extortionate in the UK, certainly.
yeah, but it's one of the things where it's like where we are, it's quite different to that. So like for the price of me buying the house that I live in right now, I could pay the rent for 500 months.
Yeah.
So in that situation, it's like, why would I? That's 41 years, right? So it doesn't. Again, I get it. When you buy something, it's an asset and it will increase in value. But this is the problem: is everybody's it'll increase in value. It's no. The houses should be owned by whatever, and then the rent is set on a level that makes sense based on what people earn. Because if you keep squeezing this like extra money out of everything in the economy, extra profit, extra growth, at some point it's just going to collapse on itself. Because how do you then deal with the prices going higher? You increase the salaries, and then you increase the salaries and the prices go higher.
And it just never ends.
It's something has to give. So yeah, for me, like 41 years, why would I?
That's a funny thing here, though, because it's, I guess, not many people, or maybe the majority of people do rent, because it seems so expensive property here compared
It is.
when you compare it to like a rental price. It seems really crazy, but it seems fair in a way that rent seems actually priced in a way that's more affordable or that seems to be okay. Whereas I used to know in the UK, it's like you'd have a house that's worth X amount, but then the monthly rent that they're asking just seems like such a huge proportion compared to what the house is actually worth. And you just think, so what's the deal here? You want people to pay off your mortgage, but at a really high rate, to the point where they've paid for the entire house in 10 years or something like that, or something ridiculous. It just doesn't seem to make sense.
No, and it's one of the things that I saw a short video by that. I always forget his name, but you're going to know who I'm talking about. It's the guy who's a large dude, curly hair.
It Rory Sutherland? Yeah, Rory Sutherland.
That's right. Yeah, and he's talking about like the UK housing stock, and he's like, our housing stock is terrible. It's like the quality of the houses in the UK is shocking. He said, now you're spending £1 million on a house in London that back in Victorian times, again, and it was what he said, a mill worker would have been living in that house, like earning a tiny salary. And the house is the same as it was then. It's not really changed. It's not moved. But the land has just got to a ridiculous point.
Yeah.
So you're paying £1 million for a house that a mill worker would have been happy to live in. It's almost a free house with a job back then. It's like, oh, you come and live in this house, we'll take a little bit out of your salary. And it's crazy.
And now to afford it, you need to be some like really high-flying executive or business type in the city of London making an absolute ton of money.
Yeah, and it's coming from somewhere. There's definitely a driving force. Like, even here, land prices have doubled here in the last 12 months. Doubled. Yeah. So it's this kind of There's something there that we don't obviously understand as we're not economists, but there's something in there that makes that balloon everything else so that it creates this hype. And I think that's another argument towards life not being as good now as it was then, is there's been this like extraction of wealth from the system for so long now that like it's all just built on this thing where inflated prices and things seeming like they're worth more than they are, and the whole money trap has just got to a point now where there's almost no, unless you're already in it and you've already got an asset that you can work with, it's much harder to step out of that.
Then if we think of the money trap and then you expand that, if you look at like the national debt of each country now, it's just unbelievable. I can't remember what America's on, but I think they got 37 or 38 trillion recently. And it's so much. You can go on a website called, I think it's usdebtclock.com, and it just shows the debt rising and rising on this like time, like a timer. It's insane. Just like thousands per second or whatever. It's nuts. But like when you have that, it's like a previous generation, unbeknownst to them, but the governments took out all this debt and used it. And now it's almost like it's with saying, okay, now you have to pay it back, or the generation in the future will have to pay it back. And we're just not going to be able to, because when you have debt to GDP ratios that are becoming equal, the country can't produce enough money to ever pay off that debt. And all they can really do, I think, in the end, that's why it'd be good to speak to an economist and find out, but is they either just default on it and collapse the entire economy and start again, or the other way these things get reset typically is wars, like a really big war. And that's part of how America took off after the Second World War, because it's like all the debts were set back to zero, and then that's it, stop growing, stop borrowing. But yeah, it's like the sort of boomer generation took out all that debt and just passed it on to us and future generations, which is just crazy.
Yeah, and the way forward with some of these things, I really don't know. I think some of it has to be like, okay, listen, if you're born after this date, there's no NHS. You need to start paying for insurance, and you've got to figure it out. Because how else do you get out of it? Do you know what I mean? There needs to be some drastic action, and it's not going to be. I don't think it's possible to get out of it. I think it will just continue.
It's completely impossible.
It will just continue. But again, I think some of these things we've talked about, let's bring it back down to a micro level. So to our particular lives. Like personally, I don't really give a shit about any of this stuff. It doesn't bother me. Like I live in my own bubble in my own world, and like I just think that no matter how big the media makes out of these problems, there's always been stuff like that. You know, it's always been the case. And it's like you really get to drive your level of happiness, right? And now I'm not saying that obviously the things we discussed earlier don't happen, and that some people have illnesses and they can't deal with those things. But generally speaking, the power of like how enjoyable or how happy you are or how much better life is today than it was yesterday is about your growth and your journey and your arc. And that's why personally I don't read the news or look into these things. I do hear it from people. Of course, I'm not a hermit, but I just don't care really. It's not, I can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Why let it bother me?
I guess that's the thing. So it's always whatever's going on, it's how you process things, how you deal with things, how things are from your point of view, what you choose to focus on. And I guess that's part of life, about mindset and how you view the world, because it is really easy. So right now we've got, if you want, you can have 24/7 coverage of various wars going on around the world. you can sit and watch that all day and get incredibly depressed about it and live a really bad life, or you can not. And there's all kinds of different bad things, terrible things happening that you can focus your energy on and think the world's a terrible place and let it bring you down. Or you can also just focus on the good sides of life and also think, what do I actually have power over? What can I change? I can make my life better by putting some effort in. I can make the lives of people around me better by, I don't know, just being there for them or being funny or whatever it may be. And it's how these things can affect your life. I think that was one of the things of Marcus Aurelius as well, or Stoicism. It's don't stress or worry about something you can do nothing about, because it's completely pointless. And so it's down to the individual, really, of how you want to be and forge the kind of life that you want.
And even if that's in your own life, just things happen. People like all kinds of things can happen with your health, with the people you know, with the people you love. And those things can be difficult to deal with and to work through. But at the end of the day, you do still have that power to overcome and to continue and to move forward. And I think that is the key message of all of this stuff, is that, is life getting better or worse? It depends on you and your mindset and your outlook and how you decide to show up every day. But it's not going to get any longer, your life. It's not going to, you still don't know what's around the corner. So why waste your time? And it's weird, as my mindset has changed on this, I have friends that I just don't spend time with anymore, because I realized that all we used to do is sit around and complain about the government or these people controlling the world or this, that, and the next. And don't get me wrong, they're good discussion points and topics, but I just don't have any interest in filling my brain with those things. It just, for what? And I'm not burying my head in the sand about it. It's just, why bother?
Yeah. There's some famous Japanese writer whose name I can't remember. Was it something about 5 rings or something like that? But it's like becoming a master at something. And once you become a master at one thing, then you see it in all things. And it's a little bit like if you get really good at being negative about things and one particular area, could be the government or whatever else, you become a master of it. And then you're going to see that kind of negativity in everything. So I think that kind of, it spreads to lots of different things, and it's, yeah. Which is why maybe if we do an episode about optimism or something like that in the future, it might be good, because it does seem like we shape the reality that we experience with our minds and what we imprint on the outside world.
Totally. Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And I think that's where the whole thought process around manifestation and stuff comes from. And I'm not talking about sitting in the room, oh, I'm manifesting. It's like visualization, thinking about what could be possible, and then taking the actions that come up as a result of that. Because a lot of the time, people don't see the opportunities around them because they're not looking for the opportunities around them. And if it smacks them in the face, they still won't see it because they have this outlook. And you know that things are just always going to be the same. And that's why often in life, and we won't go down this route because it is another episode for another day, but often in life, the people that are around you change, the people that you attract change, and some things stay constant, of course, but they're the ones that come on that journey with you. And the ones that stay in that world you were in, again, it's like a birth and a death and a moving forward, but definitely it's an episode for another
absolutely.
day.
I think as well, so I was just thinking of something. I think one reason sometimes we think things are getting worse is, say in like the UK or different places, we see a lot of like urban decay and the surroundings getting worse. And it's not I think worldwide as well, there's a lot of countries that have big plans, but it's not like we've got really ambitious plans like building pyramids, or like when all the sort of cathedrals were built in medieval times that would take like over 100 years to make. It just doesn't seem like there's this huge ambition to do something amazing. And when you hear politicians talk, it's just, oh, we'll make this really bad thing a little bit less bad. It's never
we'll
this
take
sort
the
of
edge off.
like, we're going to do this thing, it's going to be amazing. There doesn't seem to be any of that going around. So instead, you have to do that in your own life with your own family or circle of friends or whatever that might be, because it seems sometimes the world around us isn't that inspired.
It's the way I heard this thing the other day, and it relates to this subject, right? And again, the wording is religious in a sense, right? Of course, but it's not like I'm saying this thing or that thing, but it was the devil is logical and God is delusional. And that like really hit me. It's like the delusional part of things is that believing that you can do all this stuff, believing you can change your world, your life, believing that anything's possible. And like, we're very much pushed in science and all of the other things. It's like, oh no, this is logical. So if you're here now, then you couldn't possibly ever be here in your business, in your life, in your achievements. Oh, you've never done a podcast. You're never going to be a famous podcaster or whatever. And for you and me, we just forging on with it anyway. And like that eventually will lead to 25 subscribers. But do you get what I'm saying?
27. Yeah.
Approaching life in a more delusional way rather than a logical way is just going to be better. It's like too much logic is just going to constrict everything. And you're like, wow, do you know what? AI, and I was like this last year, AI is coming anyway. What's the point in building anything? AI will do it all soon anyway. So why bother? Why start a business? And we'll probably have a nuclear war in 5 years. So forget it. What's the point in having kids and trying to build a family or whatever? Do you know what I mean? And I think people need to realize that all of that is just cop out.
Yeah, absolutely. And it almost seems like it's put there by design or something to make people feel bad. Because I don't know, maybe that's down a slight sort of conspiracy rabbit hole or something, but it seems like something's going on to push people's psyche downwards, and sort of something coming along and people say, oh, this thing's going to come along and replace everybody. Everything you're doing is pointless. You have no value. So, all right, okay.
Don't try and think outside the box. No, it's true. It's true. And it makes total sense. And again, I think there's an episode there for sure that we should go into the future. But this week, that pretty much wraps us up, I think. Like it's a good coverage of things have changed, of course, but the power of how you experience these things and how you do great things and move forward has pretty much always been the same. And it's in controlling your own mind and becoming consistent with what you do and whatever you do. And I think that consistency towards a goal is what keeps people happy regardless of what's going on anywhere else.
Yeah. And I think at the same time, it's also I was seeing that it's important in the way that we look at some things as well, because I think even in our own lives, we should always be aware of the difference between change and progress and the difference between knowledge and wisdom. And I think that some of the metrics we should be looking at.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I love that. That makes total sense. So next week on Temporally Scripted, we're going to dive into our habits and protocols. So myself and Adam have gone from brushing our teeth with warm lager in the morning in our 20s and powdering our cheeks with... So on next week,
slick.
On next week's episode of Temporally Scripted, we will be going through habits and protocols. What works, what doesn't, and what do me and Adam do to stay looking this youthful and healthy as we enter our middle-aged years. As always, thank you for watching Temporally Scripted. Don't forget to subscribe. Give us a comment if you want a personalized thank you video from me. And until next time, Adam.
Yeah, see you next time, folks.
Bye bye.